Whew. All right. Let's get it. All right. All right. Ooh. Ooh. All right. You are now watching Juke Boy Sports Show. I'm your host, Kyng Ralph. Solo Dolo show. Guess you could say. Stay refreshed. Quench your thirst. Drink responsibly, my friends. But before we get going, we got send a shout out to the sponsor. You want to do a podcast like what you're watching, photo shoots, music videos, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. And then make sure you go like, subscribe, comment, share on all of our socials. The He Say, She Say channel, like that page on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube to Juke Media. Make sure you go and follow the Instagram page, Juke Sports Show. And you can follow me on all platforms as well at KYNGRALPH, add an underscore for X or Twitter. And you can also find us in audio only version on everywhere where you can get your podcasts. At Juke Boys Sports Show on all platforms. And got to get down to these brackets. The official brackets came out on Sunday. The tournament is officially up and going. Virginia is playing Colorado State right now. And they're getting smacked as we speak. But also, the brackets officially get going where the round of 64 is officially starting on Thursday. So I'm going to break down the brackets right now. A lot of this, I ain't no guru. A lot of this is just me coming off the top of the head, going with what I feel. Some things I do have a little bit more knowledge about, and I'll drop those jewels when I go into it. But to start off, we got the round of 64. UConn at number 1 seed. North Carolina gets a number 1 seed. Purdue, Zach Edey, and Purdue get the number 1 seed in the Midwest. And then out west, we got Houston getting, or was that the South, or was that in the South? We got Houston getting the number 1 seed, and then out west is North Carolina getting the number 1 seed. And when it comes to these brackets, it's so hard because a lot of times when you think it's a team that should win, we very rarely do we ever get ones and twos making it to the all ones and twos making it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. So first off, I got UConn best basketball team, college basketball team on the men's side all year long. So I got them rolling over Stetson in the East. FAU Northwestern. This one can go either way. But I'm gonna go with FAU. They made it to the Final Four last year. Ironically, 3 of the 4 Final Four finalists are in the same Eastern bracket this year, so we won't be seeing repeats of that. But FAU going on to the next round, they'll play UConn in the round of 32. So I got San Diego State, number 5 seed, over UAB. Another team that got to the Final Four. I think they'll just be too deep, too much for UAB in the end. Auburn versus Yale. Bruce Pearl, great coach, always has his team prepared and ready to go. So I got them rolling over Yale. This next one is going to be my first upset. We got number 6 BYU versus number 11 Duquesne. Fun fact: LeBron James' old high school coach is now, well, not now, but has been the coach of Duquesne for some time now, and he is retiring after this year. So I have a feeling that they'll be able to eke out a victory. I don't think that they'll get very far, but I do see them being someone that could be have BYU on upset alert. I got Fighting Alumni at the 3 seed beating Morehead State, 14 seed. My 10/7 upset, I got Drake beating Washington State. I got Iowa State smothering San Diego State. And then as we transition to the West region, I do have Howard beating Wagner to get into the tournament, the playing game that they do. Virginia and Colorado State is the other playing game. But I do have North Carolina making quick work of Howard and advancing to the next round. Michigan State has been a little bit. Their performance has been very underwhelming. It leaves you wanting more. But I do think at the end of the day, Michigan State will be too much for Mississippi State. I think Tom Izzo's coaching in the tournament. I'm always going to go with coaching and guard play, and I think that Michigan State has the better of both in this round. One of my major upsets is St. Mary's Grand and losing and falling to Grand Canyon. I forget the kid's name, but Grand Canyon has a kid that played at Florida a couple years back, and unfortunately had some ailments that hindered him to the point where he passed out on the court. And so now he got a chance to play against some top competition, and they've had a pretty good season. Grand Canyon has definitely had a good season. Although their ranking doesn't show much, but you really don't expect them to even be in this position in the first place. So I got them rolling over St. Mary's as a game to watch. Next up, I got Alabama at 4, rolling over Charleston at the 13 seed. This one here, I am going with the hotter team. Good guard play, lineage as well. With New Mexico at 11, I got them beating Clemson, who was the number 6 seed. They Eddie House's son, I believe his name is Allen House, and then Jamal Mashburn Jr. plays for New Mexico. And so I'm gonna go with them better guard play over perimeter play over Clemson. And then Baylor versus Colgate, 13 number 3 Baylor over number 14 Colgate. Next up, I got number 7 Dayton and number 10 Nevada. I got Baylor beating Colgate if I didn't let that be known. And then I got, I'm gonna go Nevada over Dayton to advance, and they'll be playing Arizona as I wrap up. I think that was the West bracket. Yes, the West bracket. Now, as we move on to the final one before we get to the next round, I got Houston just being way too much for Longwood. Don't be a child. I got Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, being way too much shooting for Texas A&M. Once again, I think Wisconsin is just going to be too much for James Madison, but this is one of those games that you should watch. Keep your eye on. I got Duke beating Vermont. I got NC State, another 11/6. I got NC State beating Texas Tech. Typically, this is where I go with perimeter play, but I do think that if you have a player that can always get to his spot and get his bucket, I think that NC State, and I forget the kid's name, but he reminds me of of Zach Randolph. As long as he's healthy, I'm gonna ride with NC State over Texas Tech. Kentucky, this is one of those moments where it's, that the guard play is just going to be too much. But I think that they have a balance of both that'll be able to have them run over Oakland, which has a great story. The coach has been coaching there for 40 years. Next up, we got Florida versus the winner of Boise and Colorado. I got Florida in this one. And then Marquette is without their best player, I think Tyler Kolek, who's been out with an abdominal strain. And this is one of those ones where this is a definitely an injury that you would need to watch, because if he's back, then they could make it to the Sweet 16, maybe even upset Kentucky, which really wouldn't be that much of an upset because Marquette is ranked 2 and Kentucky is ranked 3. But I think he makes that much of a difference to where I got them beating Western Kentucky but losing to Florida in the next round. And so as I hold up, make sure we're right in the same spot. Yeah. Spoiler alert. So I'm to correct myself earlier, this is the final bracket. I got the Midwest bracket. Purdue, I got them running over Middle Tennessee or Grambling. I think it'll end up being Middle Tennessee will get the nod. I got TCU beating Utah State. I got the Zags over McNeese. Kansas, I already had this prior to the announcement. One of their, I know Dickinson was having an issue, but I just seen there was another player that was announced that will not be playing in the tournament for Kansas. So I just think too many injuries. I see them being upset by Samford as a 13 over 4 seed. Another 11 over 6. I think South Carolina's had a great season, but I think it comes to an end. Oregon, they just are always well coached. They play really well in this tournament times. And so I think they'll be able to get, they're going to surprise a lot of people in these moments. Next up, I got Creighton at number 3, getting a victory over Akron. I had Colorado State beating Virginia. We'll see what happens with that. But Texas is going to beat Colorado State to move on to the next round, and Tennessee will make quick work of St. Peter's. Although St. Peter's did have a good run within the last year, I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken. Next up, round of 32, we got Tennessee over Texas. I think Tennessee, Rick Barnes, getting the revenge over Texas, who pretty much gave him the boot a couple years back. I think this game is going to mean a lot to him. I think he'll be able to lead the troops over Texas. Oregon, like I mentioned, when it comes to tournament time, they just know how to kick it to another notch. The coaching is going to be at 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 its highest level, and so I got them with an upset over Creighton as well. But Samford's upset over Kansas, I do not think they'll be able to keep up the momentum and be able to get a victory over the Zags. So I do have them losing to the Zags in the round of 32. Purdue rolling. I got them rolling over TCU. I don't really think too many teams that can do anything with Zach Edey. This is the where the injury and health of Kolek with Marquette is definitely can affect a lot of people's brackets here, because you can go anywhere from they're already a number 2 seed, and then they've got this far without playing with him with playing without him for the past month. You could say 2-3 weeks, and they're still a high seed. So they've showed that they're not a one man show. So if they can get past Western Kentucky and then get him back, they very well could beat Florida. I'm not banking on health, so I'm going to go with Florida over Marquette, although I do think that that is a game to watch. Kentucky, I got Kentucky over NC State. I just think that Wags and Dillingham is just going to be too much in the end when you have perimeter players of that such that can create their own shot and create for others. It's not really much that you can do with it. It just depends on how much shooting do they have. And I think they got enough shooting in order to break zones and enough ball handling to break the press. I actually have Wisconsin over Duke. I think that Wisconsin can keep up with Duke, and they have an advantage um, in the paint that is going to lead them to victory over Duke. I got Houston over Nebraska. If Nebraska has a good night, when it comes to this bracket thing, if a team has a good night, it's going to be a long night for a lot of teams. So Houston, I think they'll be able to smother them enough to where they'll be able to disrupt shooting. So I think Houston's defense is going to be able to get them um, at least to the Sweet 16. I got Arizona and Caleb Love rolling over UNR, getting to the Sweet 16. I got another upset. I got New Mexico and that NBA lineage leading them boys over Baylor, super talented Baylor team. I have another upset. I got Grand Canyon and the Cinderella story riding over Alabama. And then I got North Carolina, just too much for Michigan State, getting to the Sweet 16. I got Iowa State ending Drake's Cinderella run. I think the defense is just going to be too smothering for Drake. Duquesne's Cinderella story is over in this round, in my personal opinion. I think the Fighting Illini just too big in the paint for them to do anything about it. So I think they roll. I got Auburn over San Diego State. I got UConn going, being the last team punching their ticket to the Sweet 16. And like I said before, I think UConn is the best team in basketball. Doesn't mean they win the title, but I just think at this point they won't really face a real challenge until maybe this round, if not the next round. I think they'll roll over the teams that are in front of them until the Sweet 16. But I do have them winning over Auburn. I got Illinois over Iowa State. I got North Carolina ending Grand Canyon Cinderella run. I got Arizona ending New Mexico's Cinderella run. But I think this is a matchup that could favor New Mexico. This would definitely be a game to watch, but I think Caleb Love is just playing on a whole nother level right now. I got Wisconsin and them boys, too athletic. Defense swarms. Wisconsin loses. I think Kentucky and them boys gonna be too much for Florida. And I got Purdue. Nobody can do anything with Zach Edey. So I don't think the Zags will be able to handle them. So I got Purdue going to the Elite Eight. And I got not Texas, but Tennessee over Oregon next. Oh, so we got the Elite Eight. I think Purdue, I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee wins, but I think Purdue is going to end up being too much. I think Zach Edey playing just the sheer size of him, if he could stay out of foul trouble, because Tennessee does do a pretty good job of attacking the basket. But I do think that Purdue is really leaning on Zach Edey. If he could, excuse me, assert his dominance on the offensive end, be a paint protector, stay out of foul trouble, Purdue will be moving on to the next round, which I do have them in my final four. I got Kentucky over Houston. Like I said, if you have the ball handling to create space and the shooting to be able to knock down jumpers once that space is created, it just depends on how well Kentucky plays defense. But I think they have the talent to be able to break anything that Houston wants to do defensively. So I got Kentucky going to the next round. I got Caleb Love getting revenge over North Carolina. Arizona is going to beat North Carolina in the Elite Eight. I think UConn in the end is going to be end up being too much for Illinois. We got UConn, Illinois in the Final Four. I wouldn't be surprised if this going either way, but I got UConn being way too much, too much. Great. I think they have the best coaching and the best player, the best group of collection of players. So I got UConn over Arizona. I think this is a round where Wags and Dillingham can get Edie in a foul trouble that will create a way for Kentucky to get this victory. And in the end, I just think that UConn will be too much. We haven't had a repeat since I think it was 07, 08 or 06, 07, when the Florida Gators won back to back. So we haven't had a back to back NCAA champion. But I think UConn got the talent to be able to do it. I think they got the coaching to be able to do it. It's just whether or not can they stay disciplined and take everybody serious enough to where, because any given night anybody can get hot and then you bounced up out of there. But in the end, I got UConn going back to back. Zion, that boy been hooping. Which leads me to the question: has Zion finally tapped? Is Zion tapping into his potential? And I think he is. I think that the way that they're using him, the way they're using him on ball, um, is tapping into his potential. I think they can do a little bit better of mixing and matching because there's no reason when you look at his numbers that he shouldn't be. I feel like he's around where he should be. Points wise, I think 23 points a game, given who is on his team. If they had one less scorer, wouldn't be surprised to see him in that 25, 27 range. But I think in the playoffs is where I would expect him to go from 23 points, which what he's averaging, to jump to like about 28, 30 points a game. That's what I'm looking to see if he's finally hitting that spot because or getting to that point because this is what you were drafted for. And so his ability to grab the rebound, run the break, create for others, he's averaging 23, 6, and 6, which is why I think like 6 rebounds for someone of his stature, who is a more athletic Charles Barkley, like you should be getting easily 8 to 12 rebounds every night. And so I think he is finally tapping into that potential. Right now, the Pelicans, I think they're fourth in the West right now. As I pull this up, oh, they're fifth in the West right now, 42 and 26. He's on pace to play about 70 games, which is another thing when it comes to his injury. How much he's been injured, how much we've been talking about whether or not was he a bust because of these injuries, is he reaching his potential? So I think he's doing everything that he needs to do at this spot in his career, and he's finally getting to that point where can he take it to the next level and it lead to teams' victories. And so the Bears trade Justin Fields. At first, I didn't really have this as a topic. I just had it from the perspective of because I think the Steelers might have stole the draft. I mean, not the draft, but the off season. Um, but I was talking to my dad, and he's hurt, and it's got me asking the question, or made me thinking like a lot. When I speak to a lot of Bears fans, they didn't really want him traded. Now they understood that he could have played better, but they just genuinely felt like go and look. And I've said this many times. I think the quarterback gets too much pressure and too much put on their backs, where wins and losses ends up being all their fault if they don't make it. And I don't think that that's fair. I think that when you look at like Tom Brady, for instance, if you look at Tom Brady's first three Super Bowls, yes, he did what needed. He didn't lose games. He kept them in games. He won when he was able to get game winning drives, but he was handing the ball off 30 times a game and just playing complementary football to the defense. And so I think at some point, yes, once we start to give you that the big bucks, we're expecting you to be able to lead us to the promised land. But I think that he was finally starting to reach that point, and then that's when you trade him. We got DJ Moore. You bring in DeAndre Swift. You bring back Cole Kmet. You bring in a Keenan Allen. Justin Fields goes 4-2 in his last 6 games, and then all of a sudden now we just get rid of him. And so I think that's the part where a lot of Bears fans are upset about this. But I do think that from the business side, to a lot of people, I might not see it, but to a lot of people, there is a jump from Justin Fields to Caleb Williams. And then also putting pieces for him to step in from day one to be able to succeed, while also resetting the time clock on having to pay Caleb Williams the top dollar, because you know he's gonna want top dollar when it comes to his contract situation. So you got about 3-4 years before you even have to address that situation where you could take other money and give it to other people, especially with the salary cap going up. So in the end, I do think the Bears made the right decision for them. It just might not be a popular decision. And then, spoiler alert, I've already answered this question, but did the Steelers steal the offseason and get the steal of the offseason? And I think they did. I think that you bring in a Patrick Queen tackling machine. Um, that right there is one of those things where I'm not sure. It just depends on where they put him at, because it showed that when he was the Mike linebacker, he didn't really hit his peak until he was able to slide to the weak side. So can he step back in now that he's in his peak? He's played behind Roquan or with Roquan. Now he can play the Mike spot and run the team. But I think Dante Jackson, and then bringing in a quarterback where for a couple years now we've just been saying Steelers, if the Steelers had a quarterback, if the Steelers had a quarterback, when Ben had his decline, they've had a really good defense, pretty good run game with Warren and Najee Harris, and so now you have a quarterback that can step in day one. And as bad as people say Russ played last year, if the Steelers had that Russ, they probably would have won 1 or 2 playoff games or been able to at least be in them. And so with Russ and then getting Justin, who can now sit behind a veteran with a great organization and learn how to play the position from a real pro, someone that's won a Super Bowl, I think this is setting the Steelers to be good for as long as I can't think of I think Mike Tomlin will definitely be able to get to 20 years with 20 straight years of winning records, which puts him in a legendary category. So I brought a new segment called Off the Top. I'm going to put a segment out, a topic on the screen, and I'm just going to say how I feel. A lot of times I speak based off of research, watching film, and things of that such, where I'm strictly just saying how I feel based on what the topic is. Kyrie Irving's buzzer beater is, when I seen it, if you look at the play, he's coming off of a screen, curling, 2 dribbles. Jokic, a 7-footer, is on him. It's it's like he does a combination of a floater, a shot, and a runner with his left hand, which is supposed to be his offhand, for game. And I think when we have the conversation of Kyrie Irving being the most skilled basketball player we've ever seen, these are perfect examples of what we mean. Being able to go score with your left hand, a game winner with your left hand, your right hand, going to the rim, dribbling, footwork, post moves. There isn't a thing where offensively Kyrie Irving has a weakness. And so Kyrie Irving is the most skilled basketball player we've ever seen, and it's time for people to admit it. His buzzer beater is a perfect example of that. And so next up, I got Dior Johnson, young man. Think out of the 22 high school class, he was the top point guard, 5-star recruit. Goes to Pitt, gets into some legal trouble where he ends up pleading guilty to simple assault and strangulation. Now he's playing at a JUCO and he's wrecking ship in the I believe it's the NJCAA. Um and he's averaging 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists throughout the season. With the last 3 games, he's had 46 and 6, 53 6 and 5, 43 6 assists, and 5 steals. And I think that outside of basketball, yes, he's been able to take the time, go down there, be humble, and put in the work. But also, I think a lot of times we got to remember that these are also kids. Yes, they're very large, grown adults, but at the same time, you can still be an adult and still be a kid in the mindset, in the head, pretty much mentally, mentality wise. And so I think that this is a perfect example and a perfect opportunity for him to look at himself in the mirror, get help, realize that there are situations that you find yourself in where you got to be able to control your emotions. And if you cannot, you're just going to find yourself making wrong decision after wrong decision, and you can end up um, shooting yourself in the foot where you might not get that opportunity to get that redemption story. And so I think this is the perfect example, perfect time for young men to be able to look at a situation. And yes, he's getting a great opportunity and taking well advantage of it, but some people don't get that second chance. And so looking at what he was, how talented he is, and looking where he is today, he's going to get an opportunity in the next season to be able to go back to a D1. Hopefully he makes the best of it. But I think this is a great redemption story and a perfect example for young men to be able to look at this story and get the help that you need. And so next up, I got Drea and Joy. Joy is Trayvon Diggs' baby mama, or girlfriend. No disrespect in any way, shape, or form. But Drea is pregnant by Jalen Green, she is 39, he's 22. Trayvon Diggs has a baby, is now has a woman that is pregnant that also has a baby with Future and Bow Wow, who is also 35 and he is 25. And just be and do what you want to do in life. And I feel like too often we're definitely a soft society. But yes, you should be able to do a lot of things and that you want to do and make you happy. But also understand when you live a life that is in public, you put things on social media, you are a public figure or you're dating someone who is a public figure. Just know that no matter what you do, good, bad, or indifferent, people are going to be talking about it. And Drea, no, I haven't heard the Joy say anything, but Drea definitely has came out and said some things and how she feels some way about things that have been said about her. And sis, everybody has a past. You can't just up and make people forget what they've seen you do and seeing you been around how you've acted in the public light. Just realize that like you're too grown to not have that mindset or think about that. You live a life in a public eye. Yes, I could be sitting here saying like, "Oh my God," like it's you have it easy, but I know it's not easy. But I just feel like too often people do things knowing that it's gonna get a reaction, and then they're upset with the reaction. At the end of the day, do what it is that makes you happy. Do what you want to do, and be who you want to be. All right, and then last but not least, got to talk about my aces. I love y'all. I love that everything that you're doing for the city, the sport. Um, but I'm not feeling the jerseys, the jersey colors. Like I was digging that love, that red, that black, that gold, and then the switch to where you're, because the owner of the Aces is Mark Davis, um, the owner of the Raiders, so he changed it to where it's like Raiders colors. I'm not feeling it. I think it was so unnecessary. It didn't need to be done, and I love y'all. I'm gonna support y'all regardless. But at the end of the day, them jerseys is mid. And so I got to get up out of here. Thank you all for watching. Make sure, like I said, like, subscribe, comment, share all those socials that are on that bottom ticker. For exclusive content, make sure you go and follow me at KYNGRALPH on all platforms, at an underscore for X or Twitter. Make sure you go and subscribe at Juke Media on YouTube, like the He Say She Say page on Facebook, and follow us at Juke Sports Show on Instagram. Thank you all for watching. And like I always end it, love, peace, and the Aces